Hello folks, Alex here. This is Alex Unabridged. This is my TBR for December. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, December is here. How did that happen? Don't know where this year has gone. Although I spent most of it in a book, in one way or another. No wonder it has flown by. So today I've got my final TBR of 2023 for you. So we will jump straight into what I plan on getting to next month. So let's start with my adventures in genre, the final adventures in genre. I'm not going to continue this series next year. It's going to get swapped out for a different series. But yes, this will be the last adventures in genre, and I've really enjoyed doing this. So we're going to finish off the year with a wonderfully happy subgenre, really, and that's dystopia. Not necessarily the best mood for the Christmas season, but what I have read of dystopias in the past, the little that I've read, I have very much enjoyed. So I do want to try a few more. So which ones am I going to dig into then? First of all, I'm going to start with a short one, and that is Anthem by Ayn Rand from 1937. And the blurb for this is Equality 7-2521 is a young man who yearns to understand the science of things, but he lives in a bleak dystopian future where independent thought is a crime and where science and technology have regressed to primitive levels. All expressions of individualism have been suppressed in his world. Personal possessions are non-existent, individual preferences are condemned as sinful, and romantic love is forbidden. Obedience to the collective is so deeply ingrained that the very word I has been erased. In pursuit of his quest for knowledge, Equality 7-2521 struggles to answer the questions that burn within him. So this is a novella. I think it's about 105 pages, so it'll be a nice quick one. And I'm interested in this because I'm interested in reading some Ayn Rand. What I know of Ayn Rand in terms of her philosophy, etc., it's quite in opposition in a lot of ways to my own. And so I'm just interested to see, what her writing is like and what I get from reading some of her work. So yes, that'd be an interesting one to start with. Next up then, we've got one which is a classic, and one that will also go into my reading list for Remember December, which is the event that I'm going to be doing in December. And that one is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I have read this before, but I don't really remember a huge amount about it. It's a long time since I read it. I haven't read this particular copy. This has sat on my shelves for years, but it's another one that I read when I was kind of like late teens, early 20s, something like that. And it just, for whatever reason, it just hasn't stuck in my brain. Again, I read it back in a time when I didn't read much fiction at all, and it's obviously got pushed out of my brain for whatever reason. But yeah, so it's time, I think, it's a good one to try again. And certainly with, the conversation around book banning and things like that that's going on at present, it's a good one to read. So for anybody who doesn't know, this is the blurb. Fahrenheit 451 is Ray Bradbury's hauntingly prophetic novel of a weird but not too distant future where happiness is allocated on a four-walled TV screen, where individuals, eccentrics and scholars are outcasts of society, and where books, the cause of all unhappiness and disruption, are burned by a special task force of firemen. It's also the story of Montague, trained by the state to be a destroyer, who one day throws down his can of kerosene and begins to read a book. Very much looking forward to digging back into this one, and hopefully it will stick in my brain a bit more this time around, 20 something years later. Okay, next up, another classic dystopia, and one that I can't quite believe I haven't read yet already, and that is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This obviously has been made into both a film and more recently a TV series with Elizabeth Moss. I started watching the TV series and stopped because it was, in some ways, it was too effective. It was just one that I was not in the space to handle at the time. It was just a bit too much, but I liked the concept. I liked the setup of it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to read the book instead. I can quite often handle that kind of thing in a book more than I can in a visual format. So yes, very, very interested to dig into this one. My sister absolutely loves this book, as does my wife, and I've never heard a bad report of it. So I've got my fingers crossed that this one will be a 5-star read. Maybe we'll find out. And then finally, I'm doing 4 dystopias because Anthem is so short. I thought I'd stick another one in, and this is kind of in a recent addition to the TBR, and that's because I watched the film recently and I'm working my way through the films again. And that is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I really enjoyed the films, and I was going to say I've watched the first 2 again recently, and we're going to watch the 3rd this weekend. And I really like the setup, and I want to see what they're like in book format. So I thought I would start reading the first one for the dystopia month, and then if I like it, I can continue next year with the others because I own them, and they can go into the Read What You Own challenge. So yeah, so we'll see what I make of Hunger Games the book. Okay then, so that's adventures in genre sorted. Okay, so remember December then. This is the event that I will be doing this month. This was created, I believe, by Elizabeth from Bouquins and Books and Anne of Anne Novella. I first saw the announcement on Ollie's channel, CriminOlly. I will link in the description to all the various announcement videos, etc. If you want to check those out. This sounds like a cracking event. I really like the sound of this and had to jump on board. So there are 3 prompts to kind of guide you in this. So the first one is to read a book to find out how you really feel about it. So this could be a book that you loved, and reread it to see if you still love it, if it's still as good as you thought it was, or a book that you disliked, a reread to see if anything's changed. And that is what I am going to do. I'm going to read a book that I really didn't like at all when I first read it. And it's one of the Stephen Kings that I don't like, or I think I don't like, and that is Misery. I read this when I was in my late teens. I kind of came off the back of Salem's Lot and The Shining, and this felt very different. And I remember just being quite disappointed with it, bored even. I think it just wasn't what I was looking for. But I know, like, for a lot of people, it's one of their favourite Kings. And I think it's time that I give it another go, because I've read a lot more King since, and I read King slightly differently now as to when I was a teenager. And I think let's give Misery another chance and see how I get on with it. So that's the first one. Okay, so the next prompt is to reread a book in a different way. So there are several kind of options for this. So it could be a translation, or a different, read it in a different language. And I'm going to do a couple of short ones for that. I have several for this prompt actually. The first one is some Hans Christian Andersen. I don't think I've read any Hans Christian Andersen in English. I mean, I'm aware of some of the stories because they're kind of in popular culture, but I studied Danish for a little while at university before giving it up for drama. And as part of that, we read some children's books, and Hans Christian Andersen, because they're kind of good, you know, for when you're learning a language. The language is simple enough. And this is one of them. This is The Emperor's New Clothes, but in Danish. So it's a beautifully illustrated edition. But yeah, I've only ever read it in the Danish. The same with The Snow Queen. I've only ever read that in Danish. So I'm going to read both of those in English. And have a nice Christmassy stuff, a bit of sort of fairy tales for Christmas. Another one that I'm going to do is I will read something in a different format. So I'm going to read the graphic novel version of Wool by Hugh Howey. I read the the novel, not long after it came out, actually, years ago. And I enjoyed it generally. I think, you know, the ending, I remember, kind of maybe let it down a little bit. But I liked the setup. I definitely like the concept of it. You know, and it's just been made into a TV series for Apple TV as well, called Silo. But yeah, there's a graphic novel edition of it, and I thought, yeah, that could be really interesting. So I'm going to give that a go. That's Kindle Unlimited. And the other one that I'm going to reread in a slightly different way is The Exorcist. And I'm going to read the 40th anniversary edition, which I own as an ebook. I don't know what year the edition was that I originally read, but it was an early one. I think it might have been one published in the 80s. It wasn't the original. It certainly wasn't the one from the 70s. But it was early. I think it was maybe mid 80s, something like that. But by all accounts, the 40th anniversary edition does have some changes to it. So we'll give that a go. The Exorcist is on my top 10 fiction list of all time. So yeah, very interested to find out what changes have been made and whether I like those changes or not. And then the final prompt is to reread a book that you don't really remember reading, or you don't really remember much about. So I have a couple for this. Obviously, the one is Fahrenheit 451, which I've already mentioned. And then the other one is Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut. Yeah, I talked about this in my top 10 physical books I want to read for my Read What You Own challenge. This is on there. Because yeah, again, it's another one like Fahrenheit 451 I read when I was probably late teens, and I remember very little about it other than that I liked it. But I really don't remember detail or anything like that. So yeah, I'm going to give this another go. It's a classic. I also want to kind of, you know, see how I feel about Vonnegut's writing at this stage, you know, in my kind of reading career, shall we say, so that I can assess whether I want to pick up some of his other stuff. Because a lot of the kind of the blurbs and stuff of his things intrigue me. But yeah, I want to know whether I want to put those on my wish list for reading at a later date. So yes, Slaughterhouse 5 is the final one for Remember December. Okay, so the last few things that I want to read in December, mainly because I feel like they're kind of seasonal or Christmassy, or, you know, just kind of would fit nicely with the mood of the month, hopefully, as an antidote to the dystopias. So the first one is this wonderful chonker, which is The Invention of Hugo Cabret. This was sent to me randomly by a very lovely friend of mine who just thought that I should have it on my bookshelf. And I do love having it on my bookshelf, but I also want to read it. And I've been trying to kind of get around to read it since it arrived in the mail, and I haven't. And I just think, yeah, do you know what? This is the sort of thing that I will really enjoy sitting down with under a blanket with a nice hot cup of hot chocolate or something, and poring over, because it's you know, part text, part beautiful illustrations, and I just think, yeah, this one could be quite magical, a magical one for Christmas. So it's some beautiful like pencil drawings in it. So yeah, so that's the first one. Then you can't have a bit of Christmas without getting hit in the face with some Dickens over here. You know, as soon as Christmas comes around, there's plenty of Dickens popping up. There's usually something that's used, some sort of adaptation on the TV. Muppets Christmas Carol is obviously on, which great. That's the sort of Dickens I like. And yeah, so I thought this year I'm going to try to read some Dickens again. I haven't read a huge amount, mainly because what I have tried in the past I've hated. But it's been a long time since I tried reading some Dickens. So I found a couple of Dickens when I was at home at over at my parents', my childhood home, that my mum had, and so I brought them back and I gave Mr. Troy Tradup, one of the biggest Dickens fanboys that I know, the choice of which one I should read, and he picked A Tale of Two Cities, which kind of, you know, that fits well for me in terms of its, you know, French Revolution period setting. And I am interested in that. I have just actually really enjoyed The Scarlet Pimpernel, which is also French Revolution setting. I have also really enjoyed the language of that, The Scarlet Pimpernel, and I also enjoyed the Jane Austen that I read recently. So I'm hoping that maybe I can get over some of the language issues that I have with Victorian literature and pre-20th century literature. But yeah, we'll see. I'm hopeful that I might find my way into liking some Dickens. I do have this available on audiobook as well through the Audible Plus catalogue. So if I struggle with the language, with the reading of it, I will try reading and listening together, because that often helps. So we'll see how I get on with some Chuck for Christmas. And then finally, as a partner piece, somewhat, to the Dickens, I'm going to read a comic which I've had in my collection for a while, a digital comic, and that is Batman Noel. And this is inspired by Dickens' Christmas Carol, and features different interpretations of the Dark Knight along with his enemies and allies in different eras. So yeah, this is Batman does Scrooge, basically. Which I really like the idea of that. So I thought, yeah, that would be it's perfect in terms of Christmassy, but it's also perfect to read now as a companion piece to A Tale of Two Cities, and some actual Dickens and not Batman does Dickens. So yeah, we'll see how I get on with those. So that is my TBR for December. Those are the last however many books I will be reading this year, before we get into the mammoth pile of stuff that I want to get through for 2024. Information on which will come throughout December. I have a few different little kind of project announcement videos and stuff to come for you in December, to let you know what my plans are, what exciting things I have up my sleeve for 2024. So do let me know in the comments, as always, what you think of any of the books that I will be reading for December. Thank you very much for watching, folks, as always. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving me a like and subscribing for more content coming very soon. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.